97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with Geoff Mosher, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast.
I love coaching this football team. I love coaching those players in there.
Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
It is Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Geoff Mosher is in the house, and it is brought to you locally here by PlaySugarHouse.com. Sign up now. They'll match your first deposit up to $250. Must be 21 or older to play. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. We got a lot. The injury report just dropped right now. We'll talk to Geoff Mosher about it here in just a second, as soon as we get him on the line. And the injury report is out. Let's go over that real fast. Avonte Maddox is out. Alshon Jeffrey, it is illness/foot.
There you go. I knew I wasn't buying it. I wasn't buying it.
They did put illness on there, though.
Yeah.
Fletcher Cox did not practice. He is not listed as out or questionable or out. I think he just DNP today. Rodney McLeod, full participant, so he will play, it looks like. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, full participant. Kelsey, Herbig, and Lane Johnson, 3/5 of your offensive line are all listed on there as full participants. But the big one on there as well, Deshaun Jackson, limited at practice today, and he is officially out for the game on Sunday. So no Deshaun Jackson for the game, no Alshon Jeffrey. You get it, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside back. All right, let's bring Geoff Mosher in from Football at 4 from the Inside the Birds podcast. And don't forget, the Inside the Birds podcast dropped this morning at 6 a.m., and they will have the Inside the Birds pregame show on Sunday at 10 a.m. with Geoff Mosher, Adam Kaplan, Trey Thomas, and Greg Cosell. Geoff Mosher joins us now on the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Geoff, the injury report just dropped. Not a surprise. Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson, both out. We hit on it on Wednesday, but losing those two guys, you get J.J. back. The weapons are going to be pretty much what they were last week, and I guess that limits things for the Eagles' offense.
Well, it certainly does. It's not going to be something that they aren't expecting or used to. We talked on Wednesday about the idea of would they get more help in the form of Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson, and I believe I told you guys at the time, I think the only way to be sure that they would is if in some form or fashion they were able to get out on the practice field and make it through like a real practice, not just a Friday walkthrough. And of course, you see Alshon Jeffrey has contracted an illness, and Deshaun Jackson has been able to only get out there in a limited way. And with him and his hamstrings, of course, they're going to try to think about the long haul rather than the short haul. So it is going to be a lot like last weekend, except with J.J. Arcega-Whiteside added to the fray. And, I told you guys how I think he'll be used. I can't imagine he's going to be a big part of their passing game, but they do seem to use him as a slot receiver in certain running schemes. So we'll see if that gets expanded at all.
I do want to get your thoughts on this Alshon thing. So Gil and I were actually just going back and forth on the whole illness thing. Now, we saw the injury report. They added foot to that. What's going on with the whole illness thing? For me, it's like you're telling me you battled all the way back and an illness is going to stop you. It's not COVID-related. I don't know exactly what's going on. It's hard for me to buy just illness. What do you know about the situation?
Hunter, I wish I had more for you. I'm going to try to look into that. I'm sure Adam will too, and have something more concrete for our Sunday pregame show. Adam and I both thought it was interesting that I believe it was yesterday he was on the injury report as just illness. It was not foot.
Correct.
Or maybe it was Wednesday. So my interpretation was that they had finally actually medically cleared him to be able to fully practice, but the illness was now holding him back, not the foot. So then you see he's listed today with the foot and the illness. Anything I would say now about that would be complete speculation, but I will go back and talk about when you're coming off a surgery of the variety that he had, and many surgeries in general, one of the big tests is not just to be able to practice, but how you feel after that practice, how you feel after 2 straight practices. Are you more sore? Do you re-swell up in the area where your procedure happened? That is something that commonly happens with surgeries, where you think you're ready, you think you're back, and then you get out on the field and you're not. Your body just tells you that you're not ready. I have no idea if that's what's going on with Alshon, or if the illness itself is just making him weaker and therefore not fully conditioned. But it's strange in my estimation that there was not simultaneous illness and foot on the injury report. It was one or the other until I believe today.
Yeah, today it was both of them. And, that is a little interesting and odd. Let me ask about the roles of the receivers this week, Jeff. You mentioned J.J. being back. He was not here last week. They only went with 4. I would imagine they're going to go with 5, and Killins would be out, and J.J. would be the guy. I guess Watkins may have a chance to play, but do we see more? I mean, Hightower has been leading the team in snaps. He hasn't given him a whole heck of a lot of production. Do they keep rolling him? Does Fulgham get more snaps? How do you see the breakdown at that position?
I think what's interesting is what they do with Deontay Burnett. Will they call him up? And if they do, and we'll find this out by 4:00 on Saturday, he's out of elevations. You're allowed to elevate a guy from the practice squad twice. So he's been elevated twice and then put back on the practice squad twice. I think he's been someone who has quietly made an impact, a couple of catches here and there, and there were times he gets separation. And we'll have to see if they want to put him back on the 53 for this game. They've got to sign him and then, make a roster move that's corresponding. So we'll see if he gets thrown into the mix. If not, I see Travis Fulgham manning the X. I see Hightower manning the Z. I see Greg Ward in the slot when they're in their 3 wide formations. There will be times that I guess they mix in J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, perhaps as like I said, on run plays where you want to get the bigger, stronger body in there, either from the outside or the slot perspective. But that's going to be your 4. You're going to be Fulgham, Hightower, Ward, with a little bit of Arcega-Whiteside sprinkled in, and maybe Deontay Burnett.
With the aggressiveness of the Steelers' defense, what do you think the best way to counter that with these weapons that you mentioned? And then, of course, add in Zach Ertz and Miles Sanders.
Yeah, so that's going to be the biggest challenge, right, Hunter, is that I think the Steelers are going to attack the Eagles a lot differently than the 49ers did. The Steelers are a true Blitzburg-style defense. They come at you not just with their outside linebackers, but with their safeties, with their corners. They disguise their blitzes. They zone blitz. They are going to throw the kitchen sink at the Eagles' offensive line. And so step 1 is to have that blocked up. And in doing, though, it's not just always man-on-man. It's really communicating, knowing where the blitzers are coming from, having guys like Miles Sanders or Ertz or whoever's staying back for a quick block and then release, all knowing what their assignments are. And then step 2, if they're able to get that blocked up, is Carson is going to have to take advantages of those one-on-ones on the outside, even more so than last week. I mean, they can do the rollouts, they can do the play action, they can do the dink and dunk to kind of get a rhythm going, but eventually you're going to have to throw the ball down the field because the dink and dunk won't work against them. I think they're the top 5 scoring defense, top 5 in yards. I mean, you're going to have to do a little bit more than you did against San Francisco, which was really beat up on defense, and they barely scored points there. So you do have guys who are known for getting down the field. Fulgham showed you on his 42-yard catch. He's got some nice quickness and speed for his size, and Hightower is a guy who brings a lot of speed. And, those are guys who can put double moves on, which I think will be really big, when you're getting those one-on-one matchups. All you got to do is, if you have a good enough double move, and if Carson can be accurate, that would be step 3. If Carson does get the time, if everything's blocked up, if his receivers can get off the coverage, it would be great if Carson could, throw a nice accurate ball consistently like he did to Fulgham and hit those targets down the field. I feel like that's the only way that they're going to be able to make this thing work and score enough points to stick with the Steelers. And I'll add into that, I think if they can get Miles Sanders also involved in the passing game, not just throwing him like little dump-offs, but like what you saw against the Bengals where he lined up on the outside and he put a double move on that linebacker and got open. That's a great matchup. It's a matchup I think they can exploit. Devin Bush is a good player, and you get a little Penn State versus Michigan there potentially in the slot, right, which would be pretty fun to watch. But I think he's another guy that they've got to use in the passing game, and it's got to be blocked up and quick.
Jeff, obviously, they're in a situation with the offensive line that's going to get a different look here. How does Pittsburgh attack differently than what San Fran did, because San Fran, you're looking at a 4-front as opposed to a 3-front. You got linebackers coming at you here, very good ones, by the way, Watt and Dupree. Mailata played well, but I think he's going to get some different looks that may confuse him this week.
Yeah, the Niners, Mike, did not do a whole lot of complex stuff. Obviously they're a little bit undermanned. They were without 3 of their top 4 cornerbacks, right? No Richard Sherman, no Emmanuel Mosley. So they had to play it a little bit safer. They obviously didn't have Nick Bosa, and they obviously didn't have D Ford, one of their situational pass rushers. So Mailata didn't get really the full taste of what the San Francisco 49ers defense is really all about. And when I watched the tape, I was looking to see if the Niners did a whole lot of stunting or twisting to try to confuse the Eagles' offensive line, just occasionally, not much. I think you'll see a completely different approach from the Steelers. I think that they are going to be very active up front. They are going to blitz. They are going to rush with their normal rush linebackers, which are Dupree and Watt. But they also have a good defensive end in Cam Hayward, who can get some interior penetration as well. So you got to think just beyond Mailata. Now you have to think about Herbig and Pryor. And they are going to blitz from their corner and safety level. And that when that happens and you start sending more than 4, when you start sending 5 and 6, now you need your running back who's back in protection or your tight end who's in to be able to read where that blitz is coming from and block that up as well. So it takes everybody being in total communication and understanding if there's slide protection, if there's chipping, who's responsible for what. It means your running back's got to read the blitz where it's coming from and position themselves for protection. So it is on Mailata because I'm sure they're going to funnel a lot of their pressure his direction, but they can attack the Eagles. I mean, even the healthy guys, right? Lane Johnson and Jason Kelce are a little banged up. We saw in the injury report. So I think they're going to have a field day with just trying to test every element of the Eagles' offensive line.
You previously mentioned the Steelers' defensive stats, which is amazing, and the personnel is obviously awesome on paper, but looking for optimism here as Eagles fans, so how much stock do you put into the Steelers going up against the New York Giants, the Denver Broncos, and the Texans, who together combined have 1 win, and that's against the Jets?
Yeah, I think it's fair. I think it's fair in saying, look, I don't want to knock them for being 3-0, but I also don't want to crown them AFC champions and future Super Bowl winners because they're 3-0 against those teams that you mentioned. I think the defense, Hunter, is legit. I mean, they were legit last year. Somehow that franchise survived 3 different quarterbacks, including Duck Hodges, to be able to almost make the playoffs. And I think they finished 500, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they were 8-8 last year.
Yeah, I don't know how many teams could have done that. And the only reason why they were able to do that is because they had a defense that was really, really potent, and they brought pretty much everybody back from that defense. So I think that part of it is legitimate. I do think the Eagles are going to have trouble scoring a lot of points. But I do wonder about the Steeler offense. You know, Ben coming back after missing all last year and now having a week off that he clearly wasn't happy about. I don't know if you guys heard about it, but he kind of grumbled about the Steelers getting the short end of the stick of that game being canceled. And they don't, look, Connor's good and Juju Smith-Schuster's good and Claypool already averaging 25 yards per catch, but it's not like it's Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell out there either. So I do question here how much scoring the Steelers are going to do against an Eagles defense that has really, played well up front at least and put pressure on quarterbacks.
I want to ask you about Jim Schwartz and if he did anything different last week. Did you see some different looks from him? And whether or not you're going to do you expect some different looks this week against Roethlisberger? The last time Schwartz and the Eagles played Roethlisberger, they beat the crap out of him.
Yeah, they have a tendency of beating the Steelers in Philly but losing, I think, in Pittsburgh. I don't think they've beaten the Steelers in Pittsburgh. Not that they play every year, but they haven't beat them since 2000 when they were still at Three Rivers Stadium, if I'm not mistaken. That was the last time they beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh. So it's definitely a series where the home team has felt a lot of the advantages. As far as Jim, this is a great question, Mike. I'm glad you brought it up because we had Quentin Michael, former Eagles safety, on with us on Inside the Birds TV. It's up on our YouTube channel today. And I asked him specifically about all the man defense that Jim has been playing. And Quentin said, well, when you're getting at the quarterback like that, You want to play man. You want to have your guys playing what do you call it, cat-on-cat defense, and just, you get the ability to get your hands on balls and disrupt them. And certainly you saw the 3 interceptions last week. But one area that I think man defenses hurt them is the red zone, where they're traditionally a good defense. But, I mean, how many tight ends have killed them? Higbee and Kittle caught a touchdown in the red zone, and I think Logan Thomas got one in the opener. They've been dreadful in the red zone. So I wonder if this is the game where Jim starts to play a little bit more zone to protect his linebackers against some of those interior matchups. Eric Ebron, they can throw to Anthony McFarland, the running back. They've got some good interior receivers as well. Maybe in the zone, maybe in the red zone, they play a little bit more zone defense than they have been doing, just to give those linebackers and safeties where they're hurting a little bit more protection. But the only other difference that you saw is how he used Jannard Avery as a stand-up joker type of pass rusher. I imagine that he'll continue to look for ways to get Avery more involved in the pass rush by moving him around. That was the plan last year for Joe Osman before Osman got hurt. And then obviously, when a guy like Avery has 5 quarterback hits in 16 snaps, it's a pretty good ratio. That kind of demands that they get him back on the field and use him in different ways. But you can't just do the same thing you did last week. So I'm interested in seeing how they use him this week.
Since we're on the topic of coaches, Doug Pederson versus Mike Tomlin, who gets the edge? We had Ike Taylor on. He said Mike Tomlin. We had Sal Powell on. He went Doug Pederson.
So I got to be the tiebreaker?
Yes.
Man, they're both really good coaches at what they do. Obviously, one being a defensive coach, one being an offensive coach. Is it really fair? Because Tomlin has literally every single weapon he needs on defense, whereas Doug Pederson is looking around for somebody to make a play right now on offense. So I don't even know if right now is the best time to match him up. But, hey, look, right now you would have to give the edge to Tomlin. I think, the Steelers are playing really, really well, and their defense is a big reason why.
Geoff Mosher, Inside the Birds podcast. It dropped this morning. You can hear more about this game. And don't forget, tomorrow is the Inside the Birds pregame show at 10 o'clock. What about, where is a spot that Doug Pederson, if he's watching this tape and he says, all right, this is where we got them? Because I'm looking around at their defense, and they're pretty good, man. They're secondary. You got Hayden. You got Fitzpatrick at the safety back there. Their linebackers, obviously. Like, to me, if they get over aggressive, like this Zach Ertz, can they find the over aggressive linebacker and get Ertz involved? Because for whatever reason, they just can't get Ertz going. But is he the key in this one?
I don't know if he's the key. I think steadiness from him would be good. He did have 70 yards on 7 catches. What was it, 2 weeks ago against Cincinnati? I mean, it's not like he's been completely silenced. And I would say that against the Rams, there were some plays to be made that Carson just didn't see him. We talked about Carson not seeing the picture and seeing wide open receivers, and Zach Ertz was among those people that he had opportunities that he just decided not, for whatever reason, not to connect on. So I do think getting him the ball would help. You're absolutely right. But if you're looking for something to exploit or some kind of bright side for the Eagles offense, I don't know if it's attacking an individual, although I will say Steelers cornerbacks are not, they're not like Darius Slay and Patrick Peterson out there. That's probably of everybody on their defense. Those guys can be beat a little bit. They benefit from the front 4 pressure that the Steelers get. But I also think when you play a team like the Steelers that will just come at you relentlessly, you have a chance to counteract them by getting your screen game going. And this is the perfect type of game and environment for Doug to call more screens. People have said, well, where's the Eagles screen game been? He's tried to. It's just been kind of not well executed and not well blocked up recently. So I had a lot of time in practice this week trying to figure out how to get that screen game going, because this is the type of team where you look at and you say the screen is going to be my best friend.
Now, keep in mind, the Steelers are 3-0. They're coming off a bye because of COVID. They missed their game last week, but they've beaten the Jets, Giants, and Houston. So they haven't really faced a good offense yet. So not that the Eagles are a great offense either, but their numbers might be a little skewed based on that. So just keep that in mind. Real quick, TJ Edwards is out. He's been put on the IR. Who's the next man up there? Do we see Sean Bradley? Is it Alex Singleton? And Davion Taylor get an activation? Is Duke Riley going to get more playing time? How do you see that?
Well, it depends. It depends on the philosophy. The last 2 weeks, you saw TJ Edwards on the field more, but he wasn't necessarily replacing somebody. It was just that they were playing more 3 linebacker, which we call base formations. They did it against Cincinnati because they felt like the Bengals were going to try to establish a run with Joe Mixon, and they wanted to get the Bengals behind the sticks as much as possible, and they did a good job of that. They did it last week again because the Niners are one of the rare teams that kind of plays out of a base offense. They play 2 tight ends. They play the fullback Kyle Juszczyk. So their offensive formations kind of dictate the defense to come out with 3 linebackers and stop that running game. The Steelers, I mean, we love to talk about the Steelers like they're the 70s, ground and pound and this and that, and James Conner, but they're not. They spread the ball out and they run a spread offense and they pass a lot, and so you do have to stop Conner, and they do have a good offensive line, but I'm not sure that you look at the Steelers the same way what they do offensively as the Bengals and the Niners. So if you're in nickel a lot, which I think the Eagles will be, I think it's going to be Duke Riley and Nate Gary, unless that somebody had a change of heart and felt that you got to keep Alex Singleton on the field. And if that's the case, I imagine it will be Nate Gary and Alex Singleton. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see if there's a changing of the linebacker in that regard.
All right, Jeff. Obviously, the Eagles get that win. It was a little bit of a surprise last week. Now they get a chance for 2 road games in a row, by the way. Being in Pittsburgh, having to win back-to-back road games, not easy. We got Baltimore coming to Philly next week. There will be about 5,500 fans in attendance at this game. So who wins and why?
Well, I am picking the Steelers. I think the Eagles are. I saw the line on is like 7. I think I wouldn't put it that. I think it's closer to a 5.5 type game. I do think the Eagles are going to keep this thing close. At the end of the day, I think the Steelers just have a little bit more experience and talent on offense to be able to figure out a way to get the extra field goal or touchdown they're going to need to pull away in this game. So I believe I picked like 27-23 or 27-21. On the podcast. It may have even been low scoring than that, but I do think the Steelers are going to win by less than 7, though.
All right, Geoff Mosher and the guys tomorrow at 10 a.m. Check them out on Facebook and all your social media platforms. It's a great watch to get you ready for Eagles and the Steelers. It's Geoff Mosher, Adam Kaplan, Trey Thomas, and Greg Cosell, and they'll have you at 10 o'clock from the Inside the Birds pregame show. The Inside the Birds podcast drops Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 6 a.m. And on Monday, it'll be Andrew DeCecco recapping the Eagles and the Steelers right here for football at 4. Jeff, take care, man.
Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
All right, and he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. And, of course, Football at 4 is powered by InsideTheBirds.com and brought to you by PlaySugarHouse.com. Sign up now. They'll match your first deposit up to $250. Go to PlaySugarHouse.com and win real money with their sportsbook along with casino games from the comfort of your home. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 or older to play.